But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for this Mushoku Monday. Hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. As always, thank you guys so much for your support, your kind words. Yes, to all those that hit the like button. Again, don't leave until you hit that like button. If you don't hit the like button, you're a babaka. But yeah, until the next Mushoku Mondays, y'all take care. Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek, the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are on Volume 18, Chapter 2. And what a fun little set of chapters. I typically am very negative when it comes to the slice of life moments in this series, but I don't know. These two chapters really did work for me. I haven't read into 4 yet. If I get there and we still have time, I'll just go into it right off the bat. But I don't think so, because I think that chapter is pretty long. It seems like all these chapters are decently long, because I think I'm pretty much almost to the halfway point already with just these chapters, so I'm assuming it's going to be a quick one. We'll see, though. But yeah, as per usual, thank you everybody that dropped by for the premiere. Hey, chat, hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support. The like button, hit the like button. I tell people that, if you can't support monetarily, that's just fine. I don't want people to overextend themselves. But the like button, that's free. I don't know. You could say by clicking that button, you're sending an electrode that will cost you money on your next bill. But I don't think it's going to be much. Just trust me, it's not going to be much. But yeah, I do greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, all that stuff. We had last week Michael, Joshua, Gearless once again with a crazy drop. Noah, really fantastic, becoming a member again. Continuing to become a member. Noah with a great super, Kusha with a super as well. And I don't know if they're a viewer of Mushoku Monday or if they're tipping for something else, but Murkia, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that. I did say Kusha again, didn't I? I think it's Kusha. Sorry. I totally said, I knew I was going to say it again wrong. I got corrected last week, and I apologize. It just looks like Kusha to me, but apparently it's Kusha. Anyways, Kusha, thank you so much. But anyways, greatly appreciate it. I do have one thing to go over before we get into this next set of chapters. I wanted to clarify something. It was only like 2 people that seemed to be, I guess, interpreting what I was saying incorrectly. Yes, I kind of mentioned that I was a little bit disappointed in the Chapter 0 with Last Mushoku Mondays, and that was really around the idea that you have these like pinnacle points in the characters' lives. Childbirth. Childbirth is pretty big. That's a pretty big moment in a character's life. And yes, technically pregnancy itself is a big moment in a character's life. And I was a little bit disappointed. I was significantly disappointed that Chapter 0, Dear Paul, was essentially, I guess, Refugio not wanting to go over that whole thing again. Like, yes, we did it with Sylphie. We went the whole pregnancy thing, went through the whole process of birth and everything like that. So let's not do that again with Roxy and potentially Edis. And it bugs me because, like I said in that last Mushoku Mondays, there's potential here. Like, there's a massive, massive potential here. The good example that I gave, and I technically got into it a bit with the last Mushoku Monday, is Edis herself. Again, we could get into the idea of what this means to Edis. What's going through her mind with this whole situation. And yes, Rudius himself, even though he alluded to it for a little bit, how important that is for her in, I guess, comparison to what she was going to be essentially thrown off to with her life before everything changed. Yes, she was going to go out to be an adventurer. They had no hopes of her ever having a husband, at least not a noble anyways. She was not going to be fitting in with this environment. So they were trying to make her an adventurer so that she can go off and do something else. And her now being with Rudius and having a child coming, they would be beside themselves with joy. So again, you have so many things you can get into with these characters and what they're feeling, what they're going through, and just to have it be a summary was a little bit disappointment. That's what I meant by it. I didn't mean, and this is what people interpret it as, oh, so you want to play by play. No, that doesn't have to be the extremes. Whenever I'm criticizing something, I'm not meaning that I want the extreme opposite. I know that some people think that's the best way to argue with what I'm arguing is to say opposite. That's typically what a lot of people do. It's not because you say, well, I'm not upset that it's not gray. It's right now it's black. And I'm kind of upset that it's not gray. Well, that means you want it white. No, I want it gray. I kind of want something in this middle area that could expand so much on the characters. The intent there is that there is something that the writer can do with these characters, and they're glossing over it. Now, I can counter my own argument, and the best way to counter my own argument is to say there's something coming. They have other plans. And again, he may not have wanted to rehash a lot of things that he's already gone over. I can understand that. And by that extreme, you're implying that I want a play-by-play. And that's not what I'm asking about. I'm not intending that I want to see Edis's, their bed encounters, every single one of them. Like, if Rudius they had to go at it like 60 times, I don't need to explain every 60 times they've done it. No, it's that middle area. It's me wanting them to get into the characters, what it means to them. And yes, there's a lot of potential there, and the emotion and what the characters are going through. That's what I'm talking about. But anyways, that all aside, let's move on to Chapter 2. The Borrowed Cat. We have the return of Linea. I was so happy to see this because I was super heartbroken that she left to begin with. I assumed that she would be back. I knew that Priscilla was going to, do her duty. Like, she was going to go back to the Great Forest. That was something that she technically needs to do for her tribe. I mean, they can get it out, but I think that's something she had to do. And so having Linea around, I was like, yeah, she's probably going to show up eventually. But then she got on the cart and she went to go, her carriage and went to go leave. And I'm like, no, wait, you're supposed to stay here. Rudius had completed another job. His objective was to save the hunter, Fam Handora, from death. The job itself sounded simple. Use toxification to save the village chief's son and kill the evil dragon thing. What could be easier? Sadly, when he had arrived, Fam was already in the forest, so he chased after her quickly. It was a close call, and Rudius was sweating bullets the whole time when she was unconscious. He even muttered healing incantations under his breath while he was carrying her. I could see that. It's like you walk in there. Again, we had only her perspective, so it was like the entire time was, oh my gosh, he keeps glancing back at me, and I kind of assumed it was because she's open there. But no, she's like literally sitting there healing. Fam wasn't alone out there either. She had Angie with her. This Angie person was more dangerous than he thought. She was far too sexy. Bewitching even. If he hadn't washed himself properly, he might have given in and made his way with her. Fortunately, he had avoided death by temptation, thanks to the replica of his holy idol. Question mark? When have we established that he made a replica of the holy idol? He made a replica Bansu. I just assumed that he brought it with him, but apparently he's like, I don't want to take the actual original, so I'm going to take a replica. But he said that it was best after it's worn. So he must have was sniffing it and looking and everything like that, but he wasn't actually getting, yes, that other aspect of the underwear if it's used. So maybe that was what he was talking about, was like, yes, they're better after they're worn. So this isn't the best. But who knows? Maybe he slipped it on her beforehand. Anyways, ordinarily, such actions were never performed in the sight of others. But he had no other choice. He had to get a grip of himself and convince the woman to abandon her advances. With that, he would return home, pat his kids on the head, enjoy Aisha's excellent rice dinner, and indulge in his wives. That was his reason for living and motivation to return safe. Arriving home, Bite, who was twisted around the entryway like a morning glory, swung open the door for him. When did he become an automatic doorman? Dilla was not in his doghouse, so that meant that Roxy was still at work. Zenith was spacing out in the garden, while Lilia hung laundry. He received a bow from Lilia as he waved at them and entered the house. I'm home. Oh, that's Big Brother's voice. Welcome home. Welcome home. Sadly, your baby sister's a little preoccupied right now. But I'm saying welcome home. Aisha's voice bellowed from the basement. He assumed that she was sorting fertilizer. Yep, I can hear you. Welcome home, Rudy. Sylvie hurried from the living room, with Lucy following like a duckling. Glad to be home, Sylvie. I'm exhausted. Make sure you rest after this then. Sylvie took his robe and hung it up for him. Looking in the mirror, his exhausted self stared back at him. Daddy, welcome home. Lucy came up to greet him. She had light brown hair and stoic yet dignified features. Yes, I messed that up last week. I'm sorry. It was a slip up. I'm sorry. I totally forgot what her hair color was. I mess up every now and then, all right? It's more funny because some people aren't in line with the premiere, so I'm guessing they're not seeing the chat. So they're like, everybody has to say it. Everybody, I said no. I know it. Like 5 people said it already. Shame, Andrew, shame. While only 3, she looked like a beautiful little elf boy. Her ears were shorter than Sylphie's, but otherwise she looked like her mother at that age. He's seen her at that age? No. Maybe, I don't know. He was overcome by her welcoming him home. That's right, I'm home, Lucy. Filled with emotion, he reached down to pick her up, only for her to promptly retreat behind Sylphie. She glanced warily at him from behind. It hit him like a fist to the gut, and he wanted to cry. Hey, Lucy, Sylphie scolded. No! Sylphie grabbed Lucy before holding her out to Rudius. He promptly took her into his arms. She was much warmer than him. Similar to Sylphie, he assumed they had a higher body temperature because of their low body fat, or maybe it was a racial characteristic. That's interesting. They're still bringing that up. And it's so odd that that's being brought up now, because I don't think he's ever mentioned the idea of body temperature. And again, I think they may have when they're maybe getting huffy puffy or something like that. But again, ever since they were returning home from Asura, suddenly out of nowhere, he's starting to bring up the body temperature of Sylphie over and over again. And then here, bringing up with Lucy as well. It's kind of weird. It might be one of those things where I'm assuming that they're trying to set something up, but an oddity, really. He launched lots of kisses and cheek rubs as she returned complaints. No, pricklies! He hadn't shaved at all while on the job, so he decided to stop. He didn't want her to hate him. Putting her down, she scrambled towards the dining room to escape. It was enough to make him wonder if she really hated him. At least she was a lot fonder of him than she used to be. She did call him daddy, and no longer looked at him like she had no clue who he was. There was still distance between them, but that couldn't really be helped. Replacing the warmth that he just lost, he wrapped his arms around Sylphie. Considering to take her off to bed, Sylphie denied him, telling him to save it for later. She then informed him that Roxy was still at work, while Lara was in the living room. Following her there, he found Lara asleep in her cradle. She had beautiful blue hair and brazen look on her face, like she was surveying the surroundings of her bed with utmost conviction. It didn't help that Leo was curled around the base of the bed, making her look even more self-important. I'm still very curious about Leo and her. Very, very attached. Greeting her, she babbled back at him. She was capable of responding, even though she wasn't even a year old yet. Maybe a genius, or perhaps an isekai like him. He's got to do this with every single one of them. I honestly can see myself doing that as well. Like being in another world, and that was my process of getting there, was being, into a body of a child that was born there. Yeah, I would totally question every single child. That said, she didn't respond to English or Japanese. Maybe it was a cheeky expression she wore, but it felt like he could hear her praising his work and allowing him some time to rest. You were allowed to have time off, Dad. He really wondered if she'd grow up to sound as impertinent as she looked. Lara doesn't seem to cry much, and she doesn't smile either. It kind of worries me. It seemed that Sylphie was concerned for a different reason than he was. It didn't sound like a big issue, but he could understand her concern. There was so many different elements in the world, and being even a little different was more than enough ammunition for bullies. Yeah, that's the other thing, is getting that whole aspect of, okay, if they don't act like a certain way, which technically is like a very worrying parent type of thing. If anything so much sneezes, like, oh, suddenly we gotta get to the hospital, something could be wrong. And yes, with a child, an infant, like, everything is super dangerous for them. Well, even assuming that something was wrong, as family, we'll be sure to back her up. I agree with you, but I feel Roxy will feel responsible for anything that happens. Well, if that happens, I'll just have to wrap my arms around her and shower her with love. Yeah, and that's the other aspect, like anything that you do wrong, or again, yes, technically the aspect of genes and traits that are inherited would be seen as something that you are responsible for. I mean, I can see that definitely being for anybody that has bore a child that maybe has some sort of mental issue or illness or something like that. Reese felt Sylphie had a point. Roxy was a type to feel personally responsible. He was happy to just raise a child with her, but she had a habit of being a perfectionist. Suddenly, Rudius realized they were missing a family member, the resident nuclear warhead, who normally greeted him with impressive speed, one that would rival Aisha in that regard. She also typically offered him a touch of her belly, as if to show off how much it had grown, at which time he'd take the opportunity to touch her chest and get a swift punch. Where's Eris? Oh, she's been having a little bit of a squabble with Aisha since this morning. Huh? You mean the two of them are fighting? I wouldn't go so far to say that, but, Alright, I'll go check in with her then. Yeah, go see for yourself. Go see for yourself. Patting Lara on the head, Rudius left the room. He spotted Lucy peeking at him through a door. She retreated up the stairs. He was tempted to chase after her, but he forced himself to head towards the basement instead. He's like, I want to go there. No sooner than he made it to the stairs, he heard Aisha banging her fist on the basement door. Miss Aisha, we already have Leo, Dillo, and Bite. Yeah, I know that. What's going on? Aisha whipped around to face him. Oh, big brother, you have to hear this. Miss Edis seems to have brought home a cat, and it's been a nuisance, meowing all morning. A cat? That made sense. Edis did like animals. It's a totally different animal. I don't know, I just had a feeling this was going to be Linea. Of course, I did sort of see the cover. I can't not, like, from the corner of my eye, see what's on the cover. That's an impossibility, but I kind of got a sense. Reese didn't care much for them since they didn't take a liking to him. Leo was a different story, so maybe he was a dog lover. Anyone on the receiving end of affection can't help but want to return it. It's not that I hate cats, you see, but we already have 3 other pets, right? I told her at least get your permission first, before she decided to keep it, but she won't listen to me. I don't see a problem with her keeping it. Really? A happy, albeit muffled voice called from the other side of the door. It wasn't healthy to indulge every desire, but Edis was pregnant and probably dealing with a lot of stress. Letting her keep a cat or 2 was a small price to pay if it meant relieving some. But we do have children in the house, and I can't come home all that often. You'll have to be the one to train it. I know, I could do that. Aisha grew sullen. Humph. In the end, I'll be the one going to buy its food, though. This was true. It was probably increasing Aisha's responsibilities. There was a good chance that Edis would grow tired of looking after it at some point. Sorry, Aisha. It's fine. This is your decision. I really am sorry. I'll find some way to make it up to you. Well, I guess. Her mood improved a little bit after he ruffled her hair, although she didn't look terribly pleased about him messing up the style. Anyways, Edis, open the door. Okay. Edis slowly cracked open the door, showing a frown on her face. She looked formidable, even when pregnant. like the king of pregnant women. Glancing behind her, Rudius gulped when he spotted a cat with a collar around its neck. It was covered in dirt, ears twitching at sound, and tail flicking handsomely. Unfortunately, that wasn't the only thing he noticed. For one, its breast, about as large as Edis's. Although clothes were tattered, it at least was covering certain places. Its thighs were thick and muscular, but not covered in fur, rather smooth skin of a pear.
Ah, boss, it's been forever. You really saved my tail. I promise I won't forget this debt for the rest of my life. I found her during my morning walks and brought her here. Her name is Linea.
Yep. Yep.
Hey, boss.
I don't even remember my voice that I had for her. Linea Didoldia, former upperclassman, beast woman that graduated from the University of Magic with top grades. Yes, Rudius definitely remembered her. That settled it. Throw her out.
No, wait.
I just slammed the door in his face. Why would you throw out Linea? What the hell, Rudius? What a jerk. Because it's funny. Because it's funny, Andrew, and you laughed. Shut up, Andrew. Nearly an hour of coaxing later, Edis opened up again. They moved to the living room to discuss the situation. Edis had discovered Linea during her routine walks with Leo. 5 months pregnant, her morning sickness had faded and resumed walks. Passing the slave market, an incident occurred. Linea burst from the shadows with some shady men in pursuit. Edis witnessed them catching her by her tail and drew her sword, cut them down, stealing away her prize, Linea, before making a triumphant return home.
I saved her, so she's mine. We're keeping her. Right. I'm Lady Edis's kitty now. Meow. I'm Lady Kitty's. Meow.
It's Nya. I forgot to replace all the mews with Nyas. It's gotta be Nyas.
Right. I'm Lady Edis's kitty now. Meow.
Linea was sitting in Edis's lap as she played with her ears. Linea was trembling in fear the whole time. Amongst beasts, the unspoken rule was to roll over for whoever was the strongest. I want to know what you're even doing in the city, Linea. And why are you in those rags? Linea had set off from the city, claiming to become a merchant. Now, she was in rags and stunk.
So glad you asked, Nya. Think it back. It was such a long, grueling, and tragic tale. Sure to bring tears.
Give me the short version.
Nya.
According to Linea, after graduating and leaving Shariah, she tried to become a merchant, selling goods between Astra Kingdom and Northern Territories. After getting into debt, buying a horse-drawn wagon and merchandise, that debt exploded with interest rates. Personally, Rudius would have opted for getting a feel of trade between nearby villages. Linea spent her days poor, and while she tried to pay off her loans, she could only pay in small installments, and would never manage to return it all. After some time, she found a light at the end of the tunnel. One of the merchants she was indebted to brought her an offer. He knew her sales was doing good, despite trying to pay them back. He offered her to join the company to drop her interest rates at the cost of 20 gold coins that he offered to cover for her. He'd allow her to pay him back and had her sign a promissory note. She agreed, but alas, the membership badge was a fake. And while it was fake, the promissory note was real, putting her further in debt and being locked in exorbitant interest rates. They confiscated her wagon and goods before apprehending her as well.
They took me for a ride. They made me into a slave to boot, Nya.
Rudius figured it would be more profitable to have someone pay interest forever. So he assumed this person devised some way of making good money by turning her into a slave. Now that I read this a second time, yep. Now that I'm reading this a second time, yep. I'm thinking somebody knew, oh my gosh, she's a, beast folk girl. If we can get her, I bet a certain family would pay a lot of dough. All right, let's trick her into signing this note. Honestly, it was partly her fault for the ordeal. Of course, a scam was a scam, meaning the person responsible was awful. But it was still half her responsibility. Still, Rudius wished that Edis didn't cut down the slave traders. They had underage kids at their house. Babies, too. They couldn't have a bunch of lowlifes after them. And here's where we're going to get into that whole conundrum that this is going to be. It's so funny that I brought this up in the previous Mushoku Monday. I was talking about, like, oh my gosh, it's going to be the next big controversy right here. And then this comes up. I can just imagine some people like really badly want to say, just wait to the next chapter, Andrew, and then you have to delete it. Oh my gosh. This whole chapter is going to be woof when they adapt this. Woof. Now, what do we do? He murmured.
Boss, you gotta save me, Nya. I'll do anything, Nya. I don't want to be a slave, Nya.
Linea pleaded with her hands together. Seeing her dressed like that with a collar was kind of erotic. Linea, you...
Nya?
Did they have their way with you?
Nya!
Before she can get up on her feet, Rudius was on his back, taking a violent, boreous punch.
Reese, how dare you ask something like that?
Edis barked.
Sylvia agreed. She does have a point, Rudy. That was a really insensitive thing for you to say.
Aisha glared at him.
Big brother, you're a big creep.
He just made everybody an enemy. I'm terribly sorry. Rudius agreed. That was crass of him.
That sure was rude, Nya. I'll have you know, I'm an untouched virgin, Nya. Don't know why, but they said it'd be more valuable that way. So they didn't bother, Nya.
Oh yeah? That's a relief. He didn't know why he asked to begin with. It occurred to him that he wanted to check. He didn't consider that asking would cause her to relive the trauma if she had been assaulted. He needed to be more considerate. Still, if they valued that, it must mean the world treasured virginity. There was a unicorn in the Great Forest that's totally obsessed with girls' purity. I don't remember what that is. That must be a reference to something else that's going on in the world that they haven't gotten into yet. Because I don't remember there ever being a mention of a unicorn in the entire series so far. Yes, it could be referenced to something else, and maybe I'm not getting it, like, in our world. But he's saying specifically the Great Forest. So maybe it could be a Great Forest in some sort of literature that I'm not aware of. But yeah, that's a reference I don't get. But yeah, I do agree here. It's kind of one of those difficult things. It's like, yeah, you kind of... This would have been better if he had Sylphie or somebody ask. Like, hey, when you're alone, can you ask this? Again, does he need to know? No. I mean, if he wanted to get revenge for that, sure. Did they touch you? That would be like the question mark. Did they touch you? I'll take them out or whatever. Like, if you're furious about that. But yeah, he's just more kind of, it seems like he's more trying to feel his own curiosity. Wait, did they do something to you kind of thing? And it was just poorly worded. There's like something you shouldn't bring up. And again, assume that either do you need to bring it up? What does it matter to you? There's a lot of difficulties here. And the only reason I could see it being justified is if you were wanting to get revenge for her and you want to know the full extent of what was happening to her. So yeah, it was him feeling his curiosity. Let's be perfectly clear. But the idea that he would be shocked by the fact that that's something they would value, I don't get that. Because I think they've mentioned that before. Like, especially when they went to buy Julie. This was something that was mentioned several times. This is a value thing that, yes, technically this is something that certain buyers are going to want. So yeah, that's obviously something that is treasured in a way. There is also the aspect, not just the aspect of what their status is in experience, but there is also an aspect of diseases. There's an aspect of diseases as well. That's a big part of it, especially in this time period. It is an aspect of diseases. Rhys stood as Sylphie rushed to heal his nose. Well, anyhow, this is troubling. Edis had killed some traitors. They probably knew what she looked like and might get revenge. They had to do something to stop that. Maybe return Linea and smooth things over. Or make an enemy out of them and destroy them completely? If they chose that path, and they somehow kidnapped Norn, he'd be incredibly unhappy. Though he wouldn't be able to sleep soundly at night if he abandoned Linea either. She was a friend after all. You were about to kick her out like immediately. What are you talking about? Excuse us. A voice called from the entrance. While unrecognizable, Linea flinched, leapt up, and hid behind the couch.
Yes, them.
Rhys made his way to the front door, but Lilia approached the door ahead of him.
You have a slave in here, don't you? We already know that she's here. I'm afraid I have no idea who you're referring to. Please leave.
3 people are at the door. One short and stout, perhaps a dwarf. Behind him was 2 musclemen. An air of violence roiled off of them, like a suffocating cologne. They looked like Adon and Samson from Ch2-3.
Don't be like that. There's no other house in the town with a gigantic white dog and a red-haired pregnant woman who can slice a man in 2.
This definitely does technically narrow it down.
Lady Edis does intend to resort to wanton violence, so perhaps what you're saying in that regard is true. However, we have no slaves in this house. As I said, please leave.
Lydia's like stepping up. The bald man clicked his tongue before pushing past the short one.
Listen here, you old hag. If you keep having this attitude with us...
Lilia flinched as his hand came down upon her, but he was stopped by the shorter man's grab.
Hold up. Don't you put your hands on her. Don't you dare. That is one thing I can't permit. Boss, what's the problem? We always do this kinda. Are you an imbecile? That maid right there is Rudius Greyrat's wet nurse, and the mother of one of his sisters. If you leave a mark on her, your entire family will be annihilated for it. I warn you.
The bald man's face twitched in fear as he glanced to Lilia.
Then why'd you have us come all this way, then? Obviously, if things go awry, and the Berserker Sword King suddenly appears, I expect you to be my shield. That's cruel of you.
The short man then took note of Rudius. His face relaxed to a smile as he rubbed his hands together.
Ah, what an unexpected surprise, Mr. Rudius.
His voice was grating and unpleasant. Is it grating and unpleasant enough? He was taking that smarmy pose to drive home the point that he hadn't put his hands on Lilia. He was correct that Rudius would have been furious if they had gotten violent with her. Would it be enough to murder them? No. But he couldn't say the same for Edis. Miss Lilia, I'll take it from here.
Very well, my lord.
Lilia bowed and took a step back, though it looked like she planned to linger.
Yes, well, such an honor to make your acquaintance, Mr. Rudius. My name is Kincho, you see, and I deal with any friction that might happen at the Valvillage shop, associated with the Briam Group.
An honor indeed. As you already know, I'm Rudius Greyrat. His name sounded like Kincho, an insecticide in Japan that killed mosquitoes. Well, Mr. Kincho, to what do I owe the pleasure?
Yes, well, you see, Mr. Rudius, one of our slaves recently ran away.
Oh? What kind of slave?
A Dodolian girl. One with great combat skills, and some mastery over magic as well. A top-quality slave.
Rudius wondered if Linea heard that. Called her top quality.
And see, some of the employees of ours gave chase, only to meet a grim end. They were all clearly cut in half.
Interesting. It was definitely Edis's work, and Rudius felt guilty about that. The traitors were just doing their jobs. It would be one thing if they were killed by their own slave, but instead they were murdered by someone completely unrelated to the situation. That did kind of suck. Here's the first, like, massive... And this I don't think is really going to be addressed in the anime adaptation. It's one of those really kind of unfortunate scenarios that's really hard to really say one thing or the other, is the idea that if somebody is involved in something that is morally wrong, but they're doing it for a paycheck or whatever, or maybe they're even forced to do it. They themselves may be in a contract or something like that and forced to have to be a part of the process. So, but it is one of those things of like, can you feel bad for them because they're technically involved in an industry that's morally wrong? Or can you see it strictly? And I think this is one of the more interesting kind of topics in the concept of Mushoku Tensei, because Mushoku Tensei doesn't hide from anything. He's very raw with his story, and he doesn't shy away from touching on difficult subjects. And it does put in the, like usual, and why I love this series so much, and why I know that a lot of people love this series, is that because it's so raw, and because it doesn't shy away from topics, you're allowed to have those questions come into your head of, what would you do? And yes, one of the bigger potential questions here is obviously the idea of the existence of the trade of people and the selling of people, and how Rudius doesn't get involved. And it gets into it significantly in this chapter and gives you a clear idea of why he doesn't do anything. It's because it puts those around him in danger. Plain and simple. It's a very easy idea here. But yeah, in this regard, when you put yourself into this world, and you acknowledge that this is a normal thing, and many countries survive on it. Like they're literally, their economy survives on it, so they actually encourage it. Without it, a lot of areas in this world, they could find something else. Of course, I'm not going to argue against that, but some areas literally would fall apart if they didn't have the trade. And since it's normal there, you can obviously sympathize with the death of somebody who is just doing their job involved with it, because they themselves don't know that it's morally wrong, and they themselves, the society itself does not see it morally wrong. So like anything else in the world, it's just a job. It would, I guess the best way that I can explain, the best way that I can equate it to current times, let's say United States. If you live in the United States, do you work for a company that utilizes parts and labor from China? You're technically serving that system. Because yes, many people would agree that a lot of labor in China is basically forced servitude. So are you morally wrong? It's sort of the same, and yes, it's not a direct comparison here, but it's pretty darn close. These people going to get this good, it got away, and it's a part of this system. And we don't directly see it, so we don't think of it morally wrong. And that is the same concept here. They don't view their job as chasing down Linea as something wrong. And again, to the layout that they're having here, it's because of the debt that she incurred that she has to pay back. And thus she's in part of the system. And thus being in a part of the system, she is running away, and thus they have to stop her. So it's I agree with Rudius, is like, no matter what you feel about that whole situation, the randos that are just trying to stop her, did they deserve to die? It's a question mark, especially when you're in a world where it's not seen as morally wrong. Again, I love that I can talk about this because it's not afraid of bringing it up. And like I said in the last Mushoku Monday, if I could snap my finger and it goes away, I would. How many times do you want me to snap?
Well, no need to dwell on that. All part of the job. People lose their lives every day to violence in this line of work. I can hardly hold that against you, especially given you're underling of the Dragon God, the second strongest of the 7 great powers, and a close acquaintance of Ostra Kingdom's next king.
I appreciate you being so understanding. He was terrified of both Orsted and Ariel. Connections really did mean everything. Thank you, CEO Orsted and Section Chief Ariel. He's got titles for them. Their influence made negotiations promising. Yes, again, make connections, Rudius. This is an important aspect. That said, Rudius wasn't very public about the working relationship with Orsted. Those rumors must have spread from somewhere. Yeah. I wonder. I think the easy answer here is obviously everything involved with the battle in Asura. That somebody involved with somebody, probably somebody involved with Darius himself, because he knew it. I think everybody that was working for the Mad God knew that Rudius was working for Orsted. And so they could have easily told somebody else. And yes, Darius, somebody very closely connected with a lot of the trade of people. So yeah, I can totally see him probably trying to get help or something like that during the processes of doing what he was doing to prepare for Rudius and all them. He probably slipped it out at some point. Got this guy coming here with Orsted. Again, even Auber himself said that Rudius was the dragon's dog.
But you see, Mr. Rudius.
Yes?
This, slave of ours is just a wee bit valuable, you see.
Yes, you did say that the slave was top quality, as I recall. Reese felt no matter how strong she was still a hopeless idiot, so he didn't see her being much of real use. Not that he had any right to judge others by their intelligence, or lack thereof.
If this was your average slave, we'd be happy to offer her to you, no strings attached, and invite you to visit our establishment again in the future. But sadly, we can't part with this one so easily. She's already got a buyer, you see.
And would that buyer happen to be a certain Mr. BG?
Yes, precisely. Mr. Rudius, I'm impressed with how readily you guessed it correctly.
So, she was supposed to go to Edis's family. I did not know this. Here in a minute, I did not know this.
She's a princess of the Dodolia tribe, can fight using magic, and she's a beautiful, if impertinent virgin. When I told the buyer that, they immediately offered 300 Osran gold coins as a down payment.
While unsure if it was James or another son responsible, Reese knew the Grey Rat family had an obsession with beastfolk. It would be better if they spent that extra money on helping the Fatoa region's efforts on rebuilding. Then again, Edis had fallen for Linea at first sight. Maybe it was in their nature to pay up rather than miss a limited merchandise. Yeah, I don't remember them ever mentioning the idea that, like, the Boreas family as a whole are, like, into this. Like, this is something that they all like. Because I know that Saros did. And yes, Philip did. But I never really got any indication, or I don't remember them really mentioning anybody else in the family, the rest of the Boreas family, that was, like, super into beastfolk. So, interesting. So when they were, like, talking about this, I'm like, wait, no, those Boreases are gone. Oh, other Boreases. Okay. So it runs in the family. I mean, I admit, the family's got taste, am I right? The family's got taste, am I right? Oh my gosh.
A slave worth this much is rare indeed. We can't quietly let her go without lifting a finger.
I can see your point.
Yes. I hope you can understand. Even if we wanted to back down, we simply can't. Getting our hands on her costed us a pretty penny in the first place.
Reus stared silently in thought. It had costed him to acquire her, and losing her could shut them down. Not that it would have any effect on him if they went under, but he wasn't eager to make them resent him for it. Here's where it kind of goes into my mentality here, which is, yes, sucks, but it makes sense.
Come to think of it, Mr. Rudius, as I remember, you have a younger sister and a wife going to the University of Magic here, yes? It would be a shame if things got uncomfortable for them.
Hold on, are you threatening to do something to Norn and Roxy? If you put your hands on them, I won't show any mercy. I'll destroy all of Renoa Kingdom if that's what it takes to hunt you down.
Forget what I said. Forget I said anything. Of course. You realize, Mr. Rudius, I have no desire to make an enemy out of you. I'm all about love and peace. I want us to be on good terms, I promise.
Yes, I would like the same, which is precisely why I'm standing here talking to you.
Right, of course. Which is why I appreciate if you would return that slave. We have no intention of putting our lives at risk by messing with you. But, well, you understand my dilemma, don't you? If we can't have her back, it'll be our heads on the chopping block. If we are doomed to die either way, we might as well try fighting, yes?
Reus knew what he was getting at. He'd lose any goodwill his company had if he lost an order for 300 gold coins. Faced with their business crumbling, they'd probably resort to anything. Kind of like a cornered animal. There wasn't much Reus could do. It was Linea's own stupid mistake that landed her in this mess. She borrowed money, fallen for an obvious scam, and made her own bed. It was probably best to let her go to the Boreas house and consider it a prison sentence. At least none of Saros' beast maids looked to be suffering. There'd probably be no backbreaking labor either. Sure, she would have to deal with sexual stuff, but at least their masters were handsome. They'd probably pamper her, given their penchant for beastfolk. If Rudius requested they treat her well, that would probably work. Yeah, sounded good. He'd go with that. Very well, I understand.
Do you truly?
Yes. All immediately. Turning, Rudius noticed Lucy peeking through the railing above. After a long pause, Rudius let out a breath. Miss Lilia? Yes, what may I do for you, my lord? He was about to bend to their intimidation, bow his head, and hand over Linea. His little girl was watching, anxiety playing on her face. As her father, could he really hand over a terrifying kitty that turned to them for protection? No, obviously not. I think you're reading way too much into that. That girl probably has no clue what's going on. That girl probably has no clue what's going on. It's one of those things, like, later on, he, like, looks back at her and she's gone. It's like, yeah, I think you kind of drew your own conclusions there, which is a good thing. He literally made a really good decision here based on that. But it's like, yeah, you were about to do that, dude. Go to my room and fetch all the money from my safe. As you command. Lilia quickly disappeared deep into the house before returning with an enormous bag. He felt bad for making her lug that heavy thing. Pulling the bag open, its contents had separate tiny bags stuffed full. Picking one out, he tossed it to Kincho.
What's this?
Looking inside, his face went pale. Magic stones. If you take that bag to a proper place, you can fetch 500 Austrian gold coins for its contents.
Huh? What?
And here, have another. Throwing another, Kincho scrambled to catch it. I suspect the Dolia girl isn't the only one you have. Have you got an Dolia princess with you as well? Those two are always together, after all.
Huh? No. We have no such slave.
Lying isn't going to do you any favors. Tossing it into the bag, the man caught it with a growing confusion on his face. Just to let you know, if I have to burn your entire shop to the ground to find her, I won't be offering you any money again later.
I'm being honest, I swear. Our only slave is one Dodolian girl. Just the one.
It was worth asking. They apparently had parted ways. Persona was probably safely at home in the Great Forest. If you say so. In that case, keep that in exchange for Linea.
Well, what? All 3 bags?
Shall I add another one? Or would you rather a magic item instead? Reese would be willing to spend 2,000 gold coins worth, if that's what it took. He showed him just how much money he earned the past year. He's flexing. He's literally flexing right now.
No. That's more than enough.
No need to be bashful. I'm often away from home, and I'd hate for anything to happen to my family when I'm not around. You understand that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Reese had to drive the point home just in case. Negotiation by coercion. I'd like to be on good terms with you in the future, especially if the Adolian girl I mentioned happened to become a slave or something, or if such a thing were to happen to one of my sisters somehow. I'm just trying to coax you into showing a little consideration for me. Make sense?
Yes. Your message is crystal clear. Of course we'll show you consideration.
Should I throw in a magic item after all? I have a hat with a gem near the band that glows and acts like a flashlight. I don't think they know what a flashlight is. I don't know if they know what a flashlight is, unless there's like a similar thing in the world. Kincho's entire body trembled, face contorted in fear as he lowered his head.
I understand. We'll sell it to you. You've more than compensated us. We have no intention of making an enemy out of you. So please, no more threats.
Pleased that we can reach an agreement. Reese had won, victory bought with gems. Pleased as he was, he didn't want any bad blood between them, or the Boreas family either. I'll pin a letter to the Boreas family for you. Return here in a few days, and you can bring me a receipt while you're at it.
Yes. That would be a big help.
Kincho sped off, dragging his muscles head with him. Reese let out a sigh, realizing that he blew a ridiculous amount of money. 1,500 gold coins worth of magic stones, maybe. He could only imagine the reason Lilia had said nothing thus far was because she was exasperated. My lord, Miss Lilia, that was splendid work. Thank you. Lilia smiled slightly and bowed, seemingly willing to forgive his overspending. Still, he wasn't sure Aisha would. Maybe he should try to convince Orsted it was a necessary work expense that needed compensation. Still, the matter was settled. He wondered how Lucy felt, seeing her dad being perfectly capable of being assertive with people when he needed to. If she ever found herself in a tight spot, he'd jump in to save her, just like he did Linea. No need to worry at all. Just fly right into Daddy's arms. Suddenly, he realized Lucy had disappeared from the spot before. His entire body slumped with disappointment. Regardless of his personal feelings, he managed to save Linea, and she would be living with them from now on as a slave. Yep. That one's going to be a tough one to deal with on the internet. I could just see the articles now and the improperly translated tweets that come out from Refugien to respond to the controversy. Yeah, this one's going to blow up. And it's really the aspect of, it's just like with Julie. Julie, it was like a big controversy because it's literally him paying into that industry. Here, even so, my opinion on this, I think he made the right choice. It's an unfortunate truth of this world, but he made the right choice. Because what they're literally saying is there's 3 options here. The first is that he just gives back Linea. And in doing that, he is literally giving up his friend. Even though she's responsible for it, she incurred that debt, she made those stupid decisions. And yeah, you can argue that she's going to end up with the Boreas family, which, yes, isn't freedom, but at least there's a lot of worst options. I mean, I think they've kind of mentioned that before, or at least I think Refugien has kind of mentioned it in a certain way with his responses and how people mistranslated him. He was sort of saying that idea that Rudius doesn't get involved. He just doesn't have any feelings towards it. So he doesn't get involved with it. But it is a reality in the world. And it does technically acknowledge, and I think Rudius even himself acknowledges, even right here as well, he's done it again. He's acknowledging that not in all cases is it like they're on a pickaxe line or something like that, breaking up rocks, or they're not all just, in a room somewhere waiting for the guy to come back in and do horrible things to them on a regular basis. In a lot of cases, they're like, Saros's maids. They were just taking care of the houses and every now and then getting a little bit, with him. And even in that situation, I mean, the one example that we got, girl seemed like she liked it. Girl seemed like she was happy about it. She had a little bit of a look of like, oh, okay, kind of look on her. I mean, she could be doing that, just put on an act. I don't know. But yeah, it kind of implies this idea that they're not always in a terrible situation. And I mean, the alternative is worse. Not worse, but you can argue that the alternative is worse. There's worse situations that Linea here could be in. With a lot of situations of like medieval times, even to today. There's even some countries, I believe, today, or at least in recent history, that this is the case. If you steal something, whatever hand you use to grab it, or in a lot of cases, your dominant hand is gone. That is how you pay it. They chop your hand off. You stole something? Goodbye hand. Just like that. Goodbye hand. And again, in a lot of cases, you could be thrown in a prison. You could be starved. You can be killed, murdered, hung. There's so many other ways that, yes, you owing a massive amount of money to somebody and not paying it back could mean your death or dismemberment. And so, yeah, being able to just, not being able to, but having this as your end goal, and yes, her ending up with the Boreas family is probably a lot better than a lot of other situations that could have happen in a setting like this. It could be much worse. Not to say that it's a better option, but it is in a lot of cases. So it is kind of presenting that whole thing. So that's the first option, is that he just gives Linea back. Which, yes, there is a moral issue there, as well as the idea that this is supposed to be his friend and she's desperate for help. She's scared. She's terrified. She doesn't want to go back. She needs your help. And you kind of want to help her. So the second option is, of course, what certain groups have said with the whole Julie thing. Nuke the whole place. Yeah, and I argued it there as well. And the idea, again, that this is a legal thing in this world. This is unfortunately something that is normal in this world. It's accepted. And by him attacking that market, he thus makes himself into the criminal. And thus everybody is now after him. He broke the law in this world. He murdered people unjustly in this world. And so not only do the kingdoms themselves might have words with him and would come after him, but you'd also have literally everybody that is partnered, involved with, the head companies, or anybody else that's involved with that company, and family members of the people that he'd be taking out, that would all want Rudius dead. Not just Rudius. That's the key thing here, and that's what Rudius is actually noting here. Not Rudius. Because he is a father now, it's not just him. He would put his entire family in danger. And yes, as this guy mentions, would hate for something to happen to Norn. Oh, Roxy, yeah. Hates. I think what they're kind of doing is specifically noting Norn and Roxy here, which I think is a bit of a slip up here. I think it's specifically noting the two of them because they're doing their own thing. Roxy is going to this place, and she's there for a long time, and Norn isn't even living with Rudius. She's living at the university. So these are two that are constantly out there isolated. He's not mentioning Edis, probably because he knows that Edis would just chop him in half. Now, Roxy, yes, I would believe it. She could defend herself, but to how many people? Or how skilled of people? He's not mentioning anybody in his household, which is odd. I know why it's not a problem, is because, again, he has the Sacred Beast is there. They have somebody that's protecting the house. The guy doesn't know that, but for some reason he doesn't mention them. Like, you could mention Aisha goes to the market on a regular basis. We know that. Everybody knows Aisha. A lot of people in the market know Aisha because she's constantly buying stuff for them. And yes, Edis, like I said, is always traveling around. Lilia could be doing a lot of shopping as well. So it's kind of odd that he doesn't mention anybody else, but he's pointing them specifically out. And that's to say, if you do cross these people, if you do nuke them, if you do say you can't have Linea back, one, you're going to create enemies, but two, even if he doesn't nuke the entire place, he is creating an enemy because it's forcing them into a corner. They're the cornered animal. They will have to do something. We're going to die anyways. That's the point. We're going to die anyways. We don't want to make an enemy of you, but we're going to die anyway, so we might as well try to make an enemy of you and see if it works out. I mean, if we're going to have our head chopped off, let's see if we can capture Norn and then try to force your hand to where you can't fight back. We'll figure something out. So that's the second option. The third option is the one that Rudius chooses here. Throw money at it. And yes, morally, by our standards, a world that, for most part, in a lot of countries, doesn't accept this anymore. It's wrong. We see it as wrong because he's paying into it. He's thus filling their pockets so they can buy more people and thus create more market, and it's incentivizing them to continue it. It's showing this market is good. Might even make some people want to get into the market. It's throwing money at it and it's enriching that market. But in the return, he's doing two things. One, he's saving his friend. But two, and most important, this is the most important thing about this, he's protecting his family. Because he's making allies out of them so they don't come after him. It's not that he wants to regularly buy from them. He might in the future. Probably. It's more the fact that by enriching them, by giving them an incentive not to become his enemy, they secure a very valuable customer. Ruius is turning himself from being their enemy, that's keeping their prized sale from them. He's now turning it into, well, we can now just give back the guy his 300. We can apologize to the guy that we lost it. But additionally, now we have somebody with bigger pockets right here. We have a future customer. And what better person that you want to be buddy-buddy with than somebody that's willing to throw 1,500 gold coins at you versus, I don't know, some guy that just wants to give you 300. Rudius is a massively bigger customer and is obviously shown, and it kind of gets in there with his whole, like, him basically flexing his bag right there, going, yeah, check this out. You want another one? You want a magic item? He's literally saying, this is nothing. Want more? This is nothing. You want more? Here. This is nothing to me. Got something else to sell me? Yeah. Come back. Or you could become my enemy and you're not going to get any of it. Nothing speaks louder than that money to people like that, basically. So, but yeah, it is kind of, there's another side of this. I would argue there is a fourth option. This is probably what I would probably think of doing in my mind, because I think the third option is the best option. Let's not be beating around the bush. It's the best option to protect his family. The other two options are not going to protect his family, and that's the most important thing, unfortunately, in the eyes of to go against anybody in the eyes of that. This is no matter what, you can't do this. The fourth option at the moment that they said the Boreas family, well, that's interesting. Guess what? Edis Boreas Grey Rat's right there. She's just holding on to the cat. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You've sold it to the Boreas family, right? She's right there. Now, yes, there's multiple Boreases and whatnot. It's not to say that you can just throw that name out there and suddenly the transaction's good and they're not going to get in trouble, because Edis, again, has technically discarded herself from the family. They don't want to have anything to do with her. Ruiz kind of mentioned that with that whole dinner that, hey, they invited him but not Edis. They don't want to have anything to do with her. So yeah, it wouldn't fix their problem. But additionally, on top of that, the other argument that you can make is, okay, let them take Linea back for now. I will go over there and talk to them. So they take Linea, they take her back to the place, say, promise me you won't touch them. I'm going to go speak to the Boreas family right now. Do not lay a finger on her. Then get into that teleporter, go over to Asra, go speak to them and say, hey, look, this is my friend. She wasn't supposed to be sold. It's my responsibility. What can I do to compensate you? But I can't let you take her. And I think that they would probably, again, these are guys that want Rudius under their favor because it's beneficial to them politically to be in favor with Rudius. They were trying to use him. Throw it back at them. Because they want you and they want to use you, use them, basically. That would be my option. I would go to them and find out how I can get Linea from them. So, but that is what it is. And again, I do, again, like I said earlier, I like that because it's in here. It's unfortunate, but it allows you to think about interesting moral conundrums like this. It's a cool thought experiment. There is a benefit for these kind of discussions. So, that said, let's move on to Chapter 3, because I spent way too much time on just that one chapter. Chapter 3, the entrance ceremony and the student council president. This was kind of a expected, but very interesting little chapter. Linea started working as a maid at their house. While Rudius was fine with her fitting for herself, Linea was still a friend. If she was in trouble, it was only right to help her. Admittedly, he had considered throwing her back to the wolves, but he didn't follow through with it, which meant it didn't count. This goes in that whole moral conundrum of, if you think it, is it actually, are you still guilty? Like, it's like the whole, like, saying, like, if a woman walks down the street and you're with a woman, if a woman walks down the street and you look at her, you know, like, yeah, I would like to do this and that with her, are you cheating? It's like, you thought about it. It is that whole thing there. But no, yeah, I do, again, I agree with Rudius here. When it comes down to it, in that moment, he was thinking about his family. If it was like, hey, can we have, because he was fine with her being there until he discovered the situation, and the situation put his family at risk. That was the only reason he was thinking about that. And I don't fault him too much for, yeah, possibly have giving up a friend. But again, he was also doing that in the mindset that it will go Boreas, and I can say, hey guys, take care of her, please. Also, due to the enormous sum that he paid for her, Aisha was against letting Linea go free. She's like, you're gonna pay her back.
I know you're earning quite a bit, but money is still precious. I'm gonna have Miss Linea work here until she pays off every last coin she owes.
Orsid paid Rudius irregularly, and usually in magic items or stones. After living through time loop after time loop, he probably knew every secret in the world. Naturally, he could easily round up enough money to set Rudius for life. That didn't change the fact that 1,500 Austrian gold coins was a huge sum of money. It was more than he paid for his house. Edis had no intentions of letting Linea go either. If he had tried to hand her over, she probably would have stormed out, sword swinging, killing them all before Rudius could blink. Yeah, that's the other problem that he's facing with that whole decision, is if he did allow for them to take Linea, they wouldn't get far, and then it would be basically killing them anyways. So again, in the end, I think the only choices that he had was really pay or go to war and try to save yourself. Which, let's be honest, is sort of what Rudius is going through right now, because the man god's after him. So Norn and Roxy are already in danger out there. And again, Aisha's in danger when she's in the market. Lilia's in danger when she's in the market. It's not as if anything changes. You just get more enemies. Still, he got onto her for killing those men, slave traders or not. He didn't care whether such people lived or died. He cared whether anything happened to Edis while she was pregnant. Killing someone while pregnant could also result in being haunted by evil spirits. In the end, he insisted that she settle things by invoking his name or Ariel's next time, even if he knew that she would take care of the problem with her sword before she opened her mouth. That was just the kind of woman Edis was, and he'd given up on trying to change that aspect of her. I think she's changed a lot. I mean, there's been a lot of times here since they've been reunited. There has been a lot of times that she has dealt with a situation that she was unhappy about without swinging her sword. And again, I kind of say that in most of those cases, is like, if this was old Edis, she'd probably hit somebody. Sylphie had no qualms about hiring Linea. She knew that the two of them were friends. In fact, she praised him for putting so much importance on friendship. Yeah, I didn't really think about that when I read this the first time. Again, this is Linea. Linea, Persenna, and Sylphie never got along. I never realized just how technically significant this line here was. Like, literally, Sylphie and Linea and Persenna were constantly at each other. I made a big to-do about that whole scene where when Rudius first took Roxy, or was one of the times that, maybe it was the first time, when Rudius first took Roxy to the university. Yeah, because it was the first time that Linea and Persenna met Roxy. And they were being, like, very, very subservient to Roxy. Like, they were looking up to her. And it was odd because and I was trying to figure that out, and my assumption was because of her race or something like that, or they felt something within Roxy. Kind of like the whole situation with why the Sacred Beast right now is so tied into Roxy and the child. There might be something to do with that tribe, or at least Linea and Persenna, beast folk, that is seeing something in Roxy. And I think the other thing that I thought possible was that they were being submissive to her because it's the boss's wife. But they weren't doing that to Sylphie. They were antagonizing Sylphie. And that could have been the fact that they've never got along. Because again, Fitz dethroned them. But yeah, this is kind of funny. Fitz, who dethroned Linea and Persenna and was constantly, against them and fighting each other. And now here she's like, that's fine. As Leo gave a wolf, it seemed that Linea got what he was saying. She responded saying,
yeah, I understand, Lord Leo. I'm perfectly fine with being at the bottom of the totem pole, yeah? I'll do what I'm told, yeah? Please feel free to work me to the bone.
Linea expressed no confusion over the holy beast being here. Apparently, Leo had explained it to her. While Rudius didn't know exactly how he relayed that situation, he also had no idea what being the holy beast even meant in the first place. That was an odd comment, because they technically got into what yes, I guess you can mean, like, what is the holy beast? Like what is its purpose? Like, not its purpose, because again, they technically told Rudius what the holy beast's purpose was. It was this dog that was meant to come around. It would get older, then like in the future, they only showed up to serve the hero, whatever. Like something is coming. And so he knows the purpose. He should know the purpose unless he forgot. But to know what it is and where it came from, I guess that's maybe what he's implying here. It sounded as though Linea would be beneath Leo in the hierarchy now, strange as it was. He felt bad for her, being lower status than a dog. That's how it was in the Great Forest. Linea's salary was 2 Austrian silver coins a month, one going towards repayment of her debt. As part of her employment, she would have a place to stay and food. Edis jumped in to say that she would personally keep Linea in her room. Linea was supposed to work under Aisha, but she was pretty much primed to be Edis's pet. Still, 1 Austrian silver coin was a generous pay considering the cost of living around here. On the other hand, considering that it only amounted to a single gold coin a year, she'd have to work 1,000 years to return what she owed. It would be much more than that. I'm guessing it's like estimates here, like it's more than that, but he's just throwing a number out there. Are you really okay with this, Linea?
Well, beggars can't really be choosers. And he did say, Binya, I hope you take care of Mew for many, many long years to come.
Linea seemed resigned to her fate, remaining limply draped over Edis's lap, while the latter played with her tail. Reese figured that if Linea was fine with it, there was no issues. Roxy returned home shortly after, expressing no opposition. Like Sylphie, she spoke approvingly when she heard that he had paid money to save his friend, at least until she learned the ridiculous amount that he had cost. At which point, she began eyeing him extremely suspiciously. Did you really want her that badly? Because she's a princess or a virgin or whatever? Thankfully, it didn't take long to dispel the misunderstanding. But as usual, no one had faith in his downstairs brain. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I think that's one of those aspects of like, did you rush into that whole deal because she's a princess and the virgin and everything? The next morning, Rudy set off to the University of Magic with Roxy. It had been some time since he stopped taking classes there, and he also got an exemption from monthly homeroom. He had no reason to go to the campus anymore. But today, he had business with Cliff and Zenoba. I forgot that was why he went there. I finished this chapter and I completely forgot that was why he went there. It technically does mention again at the end, but yeah. Entering the campus, Rudius felt emotional seeing the buildings and the bronze statue. The first time he came here, he was afflicted with ED. As Rudius went to part ways with Roxy, he could hear someone squeak.
Ah, Professor Roxy's with a guy.
He spotted a group of people moving between the dormitory and the main building.
Wait, don't tell me. Is that Professor Roxy's husband?
What? So the legend is true? That's Mrs. Norn's older brother?
That's my first time laying eyes on him. He's surprisingly handsome.
He was being treated like an exotic animal at a zoo. Still, he heard the handsome part, which got him excited. Noticing Roxy staring pointedly at him, he figured that she got the wrong idea. He was just a little flattered that a young girl praised him.
Pardon me for doing this.
Roxy suddenly slipped her arms around Rudius, then turned and flashed a peace sign at the students. In response, the students squealed as they entered the main building. I'm making it clear that you belong to me. She released him, with her ears bright red. Apparently, she was embarrassed, despite that she did it of her own volition. Was it wrong that I did that? Of course she wasn't wrong. He did belong to her. If she wanted to brag about that, he welcomed it. In fact, his heart was pounding like a young girl deeply in love. He planted a kiss on her cheek, enjoying the softness of it.
But why are you doing that all of a sudden? At a place like this, even?
It's a kiss to wish you good luck.
Oh, right then. Yes. Well, message received. I will be off, Rudy.
She then marched off, gallantly as a robot. He watched her go before heading to the research building. There is like an aspect to this whole kind of thing that is a little bit tragic. Again, this is one of the more, I guess, kind of oddly interesting things about Roxy's character is, again, the idea of the Midgard tribe. Like, put aside that whole thing of like, yeah, obviously outsiders and yeah, even people that are insiders that just maybe just find it unsettling. From the outsider's perspective, the Midgard tribe plays into this whole like 1,000-year-old lolly vampire concept. Like, no, it's a 1,000-year-old girl because she just looks young, and that's what you could argue the Midgard tribe is. It's this idea that because like Roxy, she's like 53 or something right now, but she looks like a teenager, but she's still 53. So like in the logic of the world, she is just of a race that looks like a child for a long time of her life. They physically don't grow like a human does. In the logic of this world, if you can disconnect yourself from reality of our world and put it into the mindset of the world itself, don't even think about the idea of relationship with her. Just think purely on the idea of the Midgard tribe. So if you are a Midgardian and you're living in the Midgard tribe, yes, it makes sense because everybody looks the same. If Roxy was with another 50-year-old Midgardian, they would look physically the same age. You wouldn't even question it. Roxy would be next to somebody that looks like her age. Whatever. They're 50 years old, though. Wow, that's weird. They're 50? Okay, they look like the same age. Nobody's going to question it. But I like the fact that it at least presents this idea, and it's something I've always kind of been fascinated with Roxy and the Maker tribe, is that idea, and it's the tragic idea, that when Roxy left there because she felt alienated there, because she couldn't communicate like the rest of them, the moment she left the tribe, she was an anomaly. She's traveling around. Yes, a lot of people, especially mostly people in the Demon Continent, is going to know what she is. Oh, she's a Magurdian. She looks like a Magurdian. Everybody knows that. And she's traveling around, and everybody sees her as a child. Even a lot of cases when there's like they mentioned at some point like a young group of adventurers like came to her and say, "Hey, you want to join our party? We need a mage." And she's like, "No, I'm way above you guys in rank. I can't." People constantly mistaken her for just being a young kid that wants to be an adventurer. And it gets even more heartbreaking, and especially was a lot to do with her lack of own confidence in herself with being with Rudius. Is the idea that she was going to live most of her life, like for 50 plus years, was going to live most of her life never having any sort of relationship with other people because she's viewed as a child. Even though, again, she's 50 years old. She could never have a relationship with other people because she was seen as a child. Now, yes, there's going to still be a lot of people that would be perfectly fine with that, but it wasn't until Rudius that she had any hopes of having a relationship. And even still now, in the university, they mention here and there where people are making comments about the fact that she is young, she's a child, all that kind of stuff. She'd never have a husband or something like that. She can't possibly have a relationship with somebody. And even other people make comments against Rudius because he's with Roxy. Oh, it's that guy that's walking around with that little kid. Is that he's with her? It's just a kid. No, she's in this world, in this setting, she is an adult. I mean, it's just like there's like that one TV show here recently that has a kid an adult that looks like a kid. And it's like the idea of her being with a man her age is questionable because they still view her as a kid. That she physically, you would have to be attracted to a kid in order to like it. And it poses a very uncomfortable but interesting question. Again, another thing that I like getting into. It's fun to have these kind of moral and interesting conversations about something that is kind of questionable in that regard. But here, okay, getting back to what I was getting into here, I do like this little segment because it literally is Roxy kind of showing other people, look, I do have a man. And again, I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people, yes, it's her going, okay, they're making comments about him being handsome. He's mine, she's kind of flexing. But I do also see a side of it is that tragic part where she's always seen as a kid and will never have a relationship. And she's literally saying, this is mine. I am in a relationship. Here's your proof kind of thing. So it's kind of got a cuteness in that regard right there. Because again, I think they've mentioned several times, especially as she became a professor here, that people have made comments about her. What? She's married? What? That doesn't make any sense. Nobody would marry that kid. Where was I even at? He considered it being a bit early. Cliff still hadn't arrived by the time he got there. Being a parent now, he was no doubt busy. On the other hand, Eloise had promptly withdrawn from the university after giving birth. She'd only been enrolled to find a man anyways. Many would judge her for it, but everyone had their own reason for attending the university. Personally, Rudius wanted to respect Eloise and her choices. Yeah. Remember why... Let's all recall why Rudius joined the university. It was to get his manhood back. That was kind of one of those funny things. Well, it was also to research the displacement incident. That was a side thing. But let's be honest. Remember, when he was told to go to the university... What was the two things? Study the displacement incident, and you'll get your manhood back. It wasn't until he said you'll get your manhood back that suddenly he goes, I gotta go. I gotta go there. But yeah, so it's like, and it was funny because I don't know if I ever mentioned that back then. When he first joined the university, he was mentioning the idea that Eloise was just there to pick up guys. And I think he even was critical of that. And it's like, well, you're there too that for your manhood. Nonetheless, with Cliff absent, Rudius had free time on his hands. He considered visiting Zenova first, but figured it would lead to another embarrassing sight. Yeah, don't walk in on Zenova early. Wandering outside, lost in thought, Rudius soon discovered a crowd of people at the courtyard. Curious what they were gathered for, he confronted them to find the headmaster on the stage giving a speech. Magic, however, is different. Magic has a future. We will retake the magic system that we have lost and combine it with current incantation styles to bring forth a new evolution in which Reese remembered hearing those words when he attended the opening ceremony. It seemed it was that time of the year already. He wondered if it would be his 5th year now. No, maybe his 6th. Although he only attended classes in his first and second year, he still wanted to attend graduation when it rolled around. Sylvie had similarly realized it would be a waste not to be around for hers after she withdrew from the university. Reese then realized that him being in his 6th year, that meant that Master Silent 7-star already graduated. He couldn't imagine her attending her own graduation ceremony. Nanahoshi had spent the past few years preoccupied with learning summoning magic. She hadn't asked Rudeus for any help yet, so either she was getting all the help that she needed from Pedagoose, or she simply hadn't reached an experimental stage. I'm getting ahead of myself here. First off, Rudeus himself attending his graduation, I think that's really cool, because again, that gets into the idea of, in his previous life, this was something that he never got to that point. So it's like him basically fulfilling something he never got to fulfill. Going to college and graduating, going to the ceremony. It's a big deal for a lot of people. Me personally, never cared. Graduation ceremonies, I could care less. It's like, as long as I get my piece of paper, I could care less. Bye-bye. I don't need that ceremony. It's just something that I've never really been a fan of. Of course, when I was younger, there was a lot of things involving stage and stuff like that I wasn't like a big fan of. I did have some stage fright, not like a massive amount, not like I was crippled or anything like that. Just something I wasn't looking forward to. But for him, I could see that being something, if he's one of those types of people, is cool. I would love to do that. Like, as something to kind of finally, in this life that I'm doing differently, check it off. I'm now out there, getting out there and doing things. And so this is something I want. And yes, Sylvie, additionally, her wanting to do that. It's cool. But when it comes to Master Silent 7-star, the first thing here is, and it kind of, let me get into the next part that it kind of mentions, is Nanahoshi had only joined the university to use the facilities. So perhaps she wasn't interested in graduation. It was also possible that she wanted to wait to have her graduation ceremony when she returned to Japan. That's a oof. That's a oof right there. And the idea that, yeah, I can see possibly that be something that she wanted to do there. And it's not so much that she's like, yeah, I kind of am doing this and I want to do that there. It's more of an aspect that I want to get home so I can continue my life. Like, her life there, and it sort of is applied here, is that if she was summoned here with her body and then she has to be stuck here, thankfully for the sake that if she ever does return, that she might be able to return back with her body never aging. But again, the struggle there is, does she return back to the exact time that she left? Or is she returning back several years later and she still looks the same age? That would create even more question marks than if she were to age. But yeah, if she does return, and yeah, hopefully she gets returned to maybe the same time, or even if it is later, that she can continue on her life and to achieve that graduation there. That's stuff that she wants to do there. She doesn't want to be a part of this world. I think some of that has changed. I think she's accepting this world a lot more now, obviously. But I still think that she'd want to achieve that there. That's where I want my life. That's where I want my achievements. But yeah, the other question mark here is all this other stuff, which I guess I can continue on in here. Something still worried him about Nanahoshi. His future self hadn't gone into details, but he mentioned her ghastly end. It made him want to pop in and check on her when he found the time. Maybe bring her rice balls and potato chips when he did. This is kind of interesting because it's been a while since we've actually seen Nanahoshi. Again, technically, I think the last time she was there really mentioned, and yes, he did mention that he's seen her when he went through Pedagog's fortress on the way back from Asura, but actually talking and having a segment with her, I think the last time was really the whole situation around tricking Orsted and trying to hunt him down. And yes, that time when we left her, I assumed at that point that Nanahoshi's path was going to be changing significantly. What she gathered from reading that book, which it seemed like she was applying that this is truth. Like, it seemed like she was sort of nudged into believing that this was a real thing. This book is from the future. And this book is telling me, yeah, Rudeus was concerned with her finding out that in the book, it literally tells her that she figures out that she can't go home and then she just dies. But the book itself really does lay out that she can't go home, and that's why it led to that grim end. She found out that something was keeping her theory was that something is keeping me here. She's destined to do something in the future. And that thus, until that's done, I can't leave. So I thought at that point she was going to be shifting what she's doing, possibly working with Orsted to find out what she needs to do for him or Rudeus to, I guess, achieve that, to put that check mark in. Thus, the next check mark appears, go home. And then she can figure out how to transport herself back home. But it could be that she's still trying to figure that out to have it there so that when the time comes that she has achieved whatever she's supposed to be achieving that is forcing her to stay there, that she can just press the button and go. Like, okay, I still need to figure out how to go home. I maybe not be able to go home now, but I have to figure out how to go home eventually. So let's get that out of the way. Let's get that finished. Because obviously whatever I possibly need to do is going to be in the future. It's not now. So let's spend our time now figuring this out. So maybe that's what they're doing. But the fact that he's mentioning that she has not contacted him about experimenting or doing anything, yes, could imply that she's getting Pedagog's help, but it could also mean the idea that she's no longer focused on that. She's focused on probably trying to figure out how she's going to get out of what possibly is keeping her here. But again, technically we did leave our last kind of note on the whole summoning magic thing is that she achieved this next step and then went to go see Pedagog's, and then they started teaching her about summoning a bunch of other stuff. So it could be that that's just her current focus. She was technically, again, at Pedagog's Fortress, so that could be her focus right now, is learning from them and comparing ideas and notes. But yeah, don't bring her rice balls and potato chips. You're just going to make her more depressed. Every time you give her food from her past life, she gets upset. Next, our student council president has some words of her own for our new students. As the headmaster retreated to the line of professors, keeping his hand on his wig, Rhea spotted Roxy sitting in the middle, posture perfect and dignified, befitting her role. It made him want to brag to all the students that this blue-haired beauty was his wife.
It's her. That's the university's most renowned. She's so tiny. She's not even an adult yet, is she?
But she hasn't known the touch of a man either.
Wondering what the fuss was about, Rhea noticed Norn standing on the stage with two people behind her, a tall demon girl and an extremely muscular beastman.
Hello, everyone. I was chosen this year to be the student council president. I'm a 5th year, and my name is Norn Greyrat.
This was news to Rudius. He knew that she was in the student council, but her ascension to the presidency must have happened recently. You knew it was coming, Rudius. You knew it was coming, Rudius.
While I'm very inexperienced, I want to do my utmost to fulfill the duties given to me.
The crowd refused to quiet, even when she started speaking. Norn didn't have the charisma that Ariel had, that would silence people with a spoken word. As Rudius decided that he would use a little magic to shut them up for her, he spotted someone eyeing Norn salaciously. Rudius was pretty sure that it was someone from her fan club, which was odd, as he wasn't a new student.
Silence!
Echoed the beefy beastman's angry voice. The crowd instantly fell silent.
Thank you, Gilbert.
It was nothing.
You have all come from all corners of the world to this university. Among you, I am sure there's some of you who have led lives I cannot even begin to imagine. However, while you reside at this university, you are a student here. That means you must conduct yourself accordingly and uphold our rules.
This part was familiar as well. Something about abiding by the school's regulations. Ariel had given a similar speech. It seemed like the general theme for the president's speech was pretty fixed. Or she just pretty much got that from Ariel. Like, it worked for her, so I might as well do it here.
And that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoy your lives here as students.
Norn bowed and left the stage, walking with purpose with each step full of confidence. Rudius' eyes met Norn's for a moment before she came crashing to the ground. Snickers erupted from the crowd. Norn will always be the most moe character of the series. Like, literally, Norn is the moe klutz character. That was a shame. If only she kept it up for a few seconds longer, they would have all regarded her as a sophisticated student council president. Strangely, the lewd gazes directed at her intensified after that blunder. The guy from her fan club seemed thoroughly pleased too. Clearly, this world didn't lack for fans of clumsy girls. Moe klutzy girl. It's cute. It's super cute. Norn had to have worked hard to become president in her 5th year. As a brother, Rudius could hold his head high. If Paul were here, he'd probably be hiding in the bushes with a camera in hand. Yeah, that's an interesting question mark. I didn't actually think about that when I read through this the first time. So you had essentially the whole Ariel being president, student council president, all the way up into the point in which she discovers that her father's ill. She's got to go. She literally leaves the university at that moment. I got to prepare things by university. So thus, she's no longer the student council president. And yes, we find out from the beginning of this volume that it's been over a year since Rudius left Asra. So we can probably vaguely guess almost just under 2 years she has not been the student council president. And so if Norn becomes the student council president this year, that makes me believe that she possibly was not the student council president for a while. Which makes me wonder, who was? Because Ariel had a lockdown on that council. It was lit. I mean, there could have been other people, but it sort of implied it was just really Ariel, Cleone, Elmoy, Luke, Sylphie, and possibly some other people that were working under her. So it's like, did she give it to somebody else, or did somebody just kind of pop up out of nowhere and take the throne from her at that point? I mean, yes, you want to give Norn more credit here that it wasn't just handed to her from Ariel. Now I can see Ariel seeing that Norn would be the best fit. Like, she can totally take this over from me. She has what it takes. She's pushing. She's working hard. They've indicated several times that Norn was helping out Ariel a lot. She was doing a good job as a member of the student council. So my assumption is that, yes, maybe it wasn't this idea that Ariel wanted to give it to Norn, but that Norn had to earn it, which makes me wonder who took it over. That's a massive question mark there. Maybe they'll get into it later. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting note. I'm pretty sure the demon girl that's with her, the tall one, I'm pretty sure that was the one that was her roommate, because I think they mentioned that she was kind of like a bird girl. And I think the picture kind of shows that she's a bird girl. Let me double check. Just don't look at the titles. Yeah, I'm pretty sure because she looks like a bird girl. I'm pretty sure that she was the roommate of Norn. So that's cool. That's cool that she went from being a roommate to one of her helpers. It filled Rudius with such emotion. Norn had poured her effort into so many things. Study, swordsmanship, student council. He had to give it his all too. Do everything it took to protect his family from the man god's grubby hands. I like that he constantly sees like his family and everybody doing things and he goes, I gotta do better too. Humph. So this is Norn Grey Rat I've heard so many rumors about. She's a C. No, if I take her potential into account, perhaps a B. Someone nearby completely destroyed Rudius' sentimental moment. That happens like 3 times in this chapter. Turning to them, Rudius seen a devastatingly handsome man. He was probably only 15. Long ears hid beneath his golden blonde hair. His looks were Ariel tier. With a face so dazzling, it was near impossible to gaze upon him. It suddenly made sense why the man was so conceited with a face like that. He outshone even Luke, the most handsome of the Grey Rat men. If he was S rank, Luke A rank, Norn would probably be a B. What the hell, Rudius? What the hell? I don't care how handsome this dude is. What the hell, Rudius? How dare you rank him B? I mean, he's agreeing with the guy's mindset. Just don't agree with what he's thinking. Everyone said she was top tier in the school, so I was hopeful, but that's it? Humph. That aside, despite his looks, it wasn't right for him to make such comments. Even upperclassmen were glaring his way. Bro, that dude's a yikes for real. Yikes. I hate the yikes. That's a yikes, dog. For real? For real? He was talking smack about Norn? No joke? Legit. For real. For real. What the hell are these people? Like a bunch of Valley kids that suddenly popped up in Mushoku Tensei. Twitch chat pops up in Mushoku Tensei. That wasn't just their conversation. Rudius gave his own little rendition. That's more why. I know that's more why. Rudius, I think it's implying, it's saying that he dubbed over it, but I think it's implying that he rewrote it, essentially. Rudius hated bullies, and this elf boy was only a puny first year. At the same time, the fan club guys hated Rudius' guts. With them already giving Rudius looks as to say not to stop them, they would probably ignore what he had to say. If that's all he amounts to, I bet her older brother Rudius is nothing special either. Rudius couldn't argue at that point. He was nothing special. Still, he'd rather not be compared to this guy's looks. The elf then met Rudius' gaze. You agree with me, don't you? Well, sure, I guess. Rudius is no big deal, I suppose. But Norn is really doing her best, you know? Ha! Oh, sorry. I forgot the people of this city are terrified of Rudius. But you needn't worry. My name is Rayfort. I'm the son of the elf village chief, Magnafort. You won't have to suffer under the thumb of Rudius' oppression anymore. Rudius was thankful for the polite introduction, but it made it hard to introduce himself. Maybe he would call himself Ruquagmire. Ruquagmire. I'm not like the rest of you, or even Norn. I'm a scholarship student. The only one in the last few years, in fact. Not that it should be any great surprise. I have been undertaking special education to become the next elven chief. So he was like Linea and Priscilla. The little prince must have traveled all the way from the Great Forest. I swear, I will be the top dog of this university. And that Norn girl, I will make her my woman. Please don't. Please don't. I mean, they're sort of implying... I think it's sort of implying that there's something else going to happen with Norn. Chat, shut it. Chat, Adrian, Earthly, attack. I'm already thinking it's Gravel's son is going to get with Norn. And we'll see. We'll see if Refugin can sell me on the boy. But he said he was like 10 or something like that. So he's going to be like 5 years younger. This guy right here is more of Norn's age. I don't know. I guess technically that, because Rudius thinks Gravel's son is like 10. So yes, technically he's much younger than Norn. But I don't know, give it 8 years or something. But yeah, please not the elf doofus. Again, unless they sell me on him. It's probably going to be Elf Doofus, isn't it? Shut up, chat. Yeah, that was one thing Reese wasn't going to allow. No matter how rough he might have it here, he wasn't going to allow him to take Norn that easily. Her big brother wasn't going to just stand by and watch. All you need to do is stick with me. I promise you, you'll be duly rewarded. Right. Was that speech supposed to convince somebody to become his lackey? It wasn't really compelling at all. Still, there was no small number of envious gazes hitting Rudius. Still, he was more concerned this man was planning to organize against Norn. As her older brother, he had nipped the problem in the bud. Was that overstepping? Overprotective? Norn had achieved her spot for herself. Rayford claimed that he was candidate for chief of his village, but he held no political influence here. Besides, if he tried anything, the fan club would intervene. Reese figured he'd leave the elf to his own devices for it to work itself out. But was that really the best course?
Well, I can't let that slide.
Reus was saved, peering over his shoulder, trembling with anticipation. Who the heck was this? He's like looking over like, this guy's gonna hit. Oh.
Name's Minel, son of the dwarven chief, Binel.
Must be a new student. As conceited as he was only half Reus's height. Very clearly the face of an adult man, with a tiny beard growing. He was obviously a dwarf, as he claimed. Julie's future boyfriend. We gotta get Julie to have some love. Come on.
Think you're the only scholarship student? Ha! Guess again. I'm a special student too, starting this term.
Ah, that's what he was objecting to. He wasn't objecting to the things about Norn. He's objecting to the special student scholarship. Rayford's eyes widened. Me! I can't believe it's you.
Ah, Ray, it's been a while.
So they knew each other. It made sense because they were both sons of respective chiefs. Yeah, that would mean that, because technically they implied that like there's those tribes that are down in the Great Forest area. The dwarves were down there as well, so it makes sense they probably meet with each other on a regular basis. Which means, yes, obviously, Linea knows them as well. So what you mean to say is that we're the only 2 scholarship students this year?
Nope, that's not right either.
Hiding behind Minal was a very young boy, likely 10, and likely a human. His features suggest that he was Osran, and Ruse felt like he'd seen his face before.
Go on, introduce yourself.
My name is Granul Zephin Osra. I'm the second son of Osran's first prince, Grabble Zephin Osra.
That was surprising. This boy was actually Grabble's son? What was he here for? Revenge? For what happened in Osra? Was he supposed to be an assassin sent to take Rudius down? Seemed a bit late for that. And why would they send someone as young as him to do the deed? I don't know. I don't know. Why did they send all those children after you when you were in Osra? They like sending child assassins because you hesitate. Yeah, children assassins seems to be a popular thing in Osra, so that shouldn't be much of a shock to you, Rudius. But no, there is a thing of like it just immediately brings up trauma of like, oh, someone involved with Osra, especially Grabble, they have to be here for me. They have to be here for me. But yeah, there is a sad tragedy to the whole situation with the battle in Osra. This is the side effect of it. The uninvolved children of the families and stuff like that getting endangered, basically.
My father seems like he's on the verge of losing his bid for the throne, so he figured I'd be in danger if I stayed there.
That made sense. Grabble must have realized Ariel might take his son's life and sent him away. If this was his second son, perhaps his oldest was sent elsewhere. No, something wasn't right about that. Renoa Kingdom was sympathetic to Ariel's cause. Perhaps he's been sent here as Ariel's hostage. Not that it was important, but Bruce wondered if there was a rule about every big shot son having to announce their father's name. No, I think that's a flex. I don't know. Well, he doesn't really say it in a way that's a flex. He's saying my father's losing, so he sent me away. That doesn't sound like you're really happy about the situation. But yeah, he could be so used to always talking about his father and using his father's name that he'd said it and goes, crap, yeah, but by the way, we're losing. But yeah, that is technically the other idea here, is that it could be that Ariel sent him away, knowing that he could be. Some groups would want him dead, and Ariel could have sent him away, yes, as a hostage, but also could be possibly to save him. Not to indicate that she might care one way or the other, but there is a possibility there.
I see. So you have your own complicated circumstances. I was actually chased out of my village after some incidents, so I guess all 3 of us are on the same boat.
Excuse you? I wasn't chased out of my village for any special reason. I'm the 3rd son, that's all. Since I have nothing to inherit, I decided to take my chances here.
Yes, I understand. Everyone has their secrets they don't wish to share. I'm certain that you all heard that one certain rumor, didn't you?
You did too?
Rayford threw his arms around the other 2's shoulders.
Well, we're all scholarship students here. Let's look out for one another, yes? If we throw our lots in together, coming out on top of this school would be no mere dream. Agreed?
Right.
Well, I hope we could be friends.
I think right here the rumor they're talking about is that Linea and Percent are gone. Because again, if you think about it, not a little bit over 2 years ago, Linea and Percent left the university. So they're down here, Minnow and Rayford, they're down here in the Great Forest. And then they heard, obviously, that the two princesses left. They're gone. And they at some point had to have found out about that because, again, they're kind of connected all. So they probably were dreading the idea that when they had to come up here, they were going to be under her thumb, Linea and Presenta's thumb. And so probably by the time they finally got up there, Linea and Presenta were leaving. And they probably crossed paths. And so when they finally arrived there, Rayford and Minnow, they arrived there, they then heard at that point, oh, Linea and Presenta are gone. They're graduated. Thank goodness. And again, I think they're implying that because right here, Rayford's saying, we're going to take down this place. We're going to rule this place because of this rumor that they're gone. So yeah, it kind of is funny that Linea shows up to kind of stamp on that. We just had no idea what was going on, but at least they were making friends fast. Such a beautiful scene. As for the bad-mouthing of Norn, well, he let it slide for now. People had a habit of trying to carve out a niche when they first start school. If he thought about those comments as mutterings of a pre-adolescent who thought that he was hot stuff, it felt more amusing than angering. In the end, he wished them luck.
Oh, ho! I see there's a bunch of people gathered around here this year, nya?
A voice burst from the crowd, ruining the sentimental scene again. It belonged to a delinquent of past years, a cat girl with hands stuffed in her pockets, pushed through the crowd, intimidating folks as she headed towards Rudius. She was supposed to be attending her duties back at home. So why was she here?
Isn't that Mrs. Linea? Who? You know, the head honcho a few years back. You mean that delinquent? But why is she here? She should have graduated already. Hey, ya, boss.
Hello yourself. Why did you come here for?
Lady Roxy forgot her lunch. So I came back to deliver it, yeah? I dropped by the staff room, and they said she'd be here.
Aisha must have worked fast to send Linea over quickly. Or perhaps Roxy forgetting her lunch wasn't all that rare. Is this like a thing? I think they've had her before mention the fact that she forgot her lunch at some point. I think they kind of imply that every time she gets ready to go to work, she's like, I think he said at some point, like when he goes in the room, it's like her stuff's just scattered everywhere. Like she's just like frantic mode, throwing clothes on and scattering thing everywhere. So I can see her being like late. Rudius noticed an awkward silence falling on the elf and dwarf from before. They were averting her eyes and staring nervously at the ground.
Hey, what the devil's going on? I thought she'd gone back to the Great Forest.
Well, that's what I heard.
Randall looked anxious, glancing at the other two boys' faces.
What's going on?
Linea finally took note of their presence. She amiably waved a hand at the two boys.
Hey, ya, Ray. Me?
They flinched and glanced the other way.
When did you guys make your way here from the Great Forest, nya? Hadn't it been a whole 10 years? Man, how time flies, nya. Doing well for yourselves. Hey, why are you looking away? I'm over here.
This could get bad. She had the same look in her eyes that she does when she's looking to pick fights. Like a cat looking at its prey. Even the poor boy Granel was shaking in his boots. Sorry, I think you have the wrong person.
Yeah, those aren't our names.
Say what?
Linea's hands shot out and clasped the top of their heads, turning them towards her. Her voice was low and threatening, like a school bully shaking down for money.
Trying to tell me you forgot me? Guess it's been a while, nya. Guess it makes sense, nya. You boys don't have very good memories, do ya?
Their relationship was suddenly understood. Linea and Presenta were leaders of their little band, and these two were their underlings. Pretty ironic that she still acted awfully arrogant after she became a slave. Yeah, that didn't change much. I didn't think that was going to change much. It does change things whenever she's around. Well, it doesn't even change things around Rudius, because she was already like submissive to Rudius.
No, perish the thought. We just heard rumors that you'd gone back to the Great Forest, so we were sure that you had to be someone else.
Yeah, right. You look absolutely gorgeous when Presenta isn't around. So we didn't recognize you for a second there. So have mercy, please.
Rudius decided that it was time to put a stop to it. The other first years were looking on in fear. If their first experience at university was it being ruled by violence, it would damage its reputation. This is the first institution Roxy ever attended, which made it sentimental to him. Admittedly, this school was pretty much the only higher place of learning in this world, but that didn't make it any less special. Before he could speak up, the crowd began to chatter noisily.
Hey, someone's coming.
But why?
Isn't she?
It was Norn, brows drawn solemnly as she approached. Her light blonde hair, inherited by her mother, bounced with every step. The tall demon girl and muscular beastman were close behind. It all reminded Rudius of Ariel. He was so proud. Not for long. While she did flub a moment ago, this time she only had to deal with Linea. She'd just have to give her a few stern words, and everyone would see how majestic she was. Her big brother had her back too, in case Linea talked back.
Big brother.
To his surprise, Norn slipped right past Linea and walked right up to him, placing both of her hands on her hips. She was fuming as she glared up at him. The cute Norn mad pose. The cute Norn mad pose. That is such a little sister anime trope cute pose.
What are you doing here at the entrance ceremony?
Linea was just getting a free pass for her behavior? This and that?
I was so shocked that I tripped on the stairs, you know. Ugh, seriously, how embarrassing.
Yeah, well, your speech was great. You killed it up there. Father must be watching from heaven, and
That's not what I want to hear right now.
he was trying to praise her, but he just pissed her off more. How depressing.
What are you doing here? Bullying these students? Huh?
Sorry? Bully?
She had to be joking.
He glanced around and seen all the gazes were on him and Norn. It was clear by their looks that they were looking to her for protection, while regarding him with fear. It was strange. They were acting like he was some kind of villain.
Tell me, what did these poor first years do to you anyways?
Nothing. Although they did badmouth you a bit.
I'm perfectly used to hearing that kind of things already. So knock it off. You have them all terrified.
Well, they're terrified because of Linea.
And you're the one that set her on them, aren't you?
So that was how everyone was seeing the situation. Rias had become the evil school underboss, and Linea was his right-hand thug. Crap, he did have his past actions to thank for that.
In fact, I already heard, big brother.
Heard what? From who? Rias was already on the verge of tears. She was about to kick him when he was down.
Miss Roxy told me a few minutes ago. She said that you were keeping Mrs. Linea as a slave. What in the world are you thinking?
Oh, that. Okay, sure, she might be a slave, but I'm not treating her like one. In exchange for shouldering her debt, I'm having her repay what she owes by working around the house. There's nothing skeevy about it. Norn frowned, pursed her lips into a pout. He had no bad feelings about it. He saved Linea.
Norny, everything the boss says is true, nya. He basically saved my butt, nya.
That was a perfect tail moment.
He basically saved my tail, nya.
Linea rubbed her hands together and slid up to them, as if trying to ingratiate herself. The two boys, meanwhile, visibly relaxed. Glancing to Linea, Norn sighed.
Oh, really? Well, I suppose you don't look like you're in a sorry state, so it must be true. But since you've already graduated, Mrs. Linea, I would like to appreciate you to stop causing trouble at the school. I wasn't causing any problems, nya. I was just saying hi to a few familiar faces I recognized from a long time ago.
Norn glared up at Linea, looking about as timiding as a kicked puppy. It was adorable.
Okay, I get it. I'm in the wrong, nya. So many people were looking, so I got a little carried away, nya.
Stares up at her and literally makes her confess. She got the look. It's the puppy eye look. You can't fight the puppy eye look. Norn's lips drew taut as she continued to stare up at Linea. In return, Linea scratched her head awkwardly. Apparently, Linea didn't count this as an actual fight. Maybe she was about to stop herself and declare it all a joke. Still, the boys were truly terrified of her.
As for you, big brother, well, it flatters me that you're trying to protect me. I would like to request that you don't take things too far. I can take care of myself. I'll have you know.
Yes, ma'am, as you say. Rudius bowed, prompting the crowd to ooh and ah.
She actually made Rudius Grey Rat lower her head. Our student council president is really made of tough stuff. Aw, Norny's so cute.
Fan club. Rudius wondered if it was really rare for him to show difference to others. He honestly felt like he was always apologizing and prostrating himself daily. Still, if it made Norn's reputation better, nothing would make him happier. Norn turned to the 3 first years, who were still paralyzed in fear.
So who are these boys?
Scholarship students, apparently.
Oh yes, I heard there was 3 this year. Ahem.
Norn cleared her throat, pinched her skirt, and curtsied politely.
A pleasure to make your acquaintances. I am the current student council president, Norn Grey Rat.
Only one of them had enough wits to respond.
I'm Granul Zaphith Osra, the second son of Osra's first prince, Grabble Zaphin Osra. We're pleased to have you here, Lord Granul. It must be difficult for you, coming from a foreign country with which you are so unfamiliar. While I'm sure many will have much to say about your upbringing and your familiar history, it is nothing for you to worry about. If anything troubles you at any point, please do not hesitate to come to the student council. Once any person becomes a student, we are dedicated to acting as their ally. It matters not where you came from. We are here to support you, that you may dedicate yourself to your studies in peace.
While formal and stiff, the words came out without a single fumble. She must have been practicing this given how gracefully she spoke.
Yes, of course. Well then, I bid you enjoyable time at school.
Norn then wrapped up her conversation and walked off. Young Granul stared at her, completely dumbstruck. He wasn't the only one. Rudius was frozen solid too. In the short time since he last seen her, Norn had become even more impressive. He could only guess she was taking etiquette classes. That said, if she could handle herself this much with such grace, there was no way that she'd be undermined by a couple first-year upstarts. In fact, Rayford had been trembling in place, eyes glued to Rudius for several minutes now. Not wanting to further entangle in the affairs, Rudius grabbed Linea and left the scene. 3 new scholarship students enrolled in the university. At the same time, Norn took the student council president's seat. The next generation was taking up the reins of the school, and with that, brand new changes were sure to follow. Contemplating this, Rudius parted his ways with Linea and went back to Cliff's research room. And that is chapter 3. There was one thing that I kind of ran into with this little segment, and I didn't want to ruin the joke of the scene, so I just didn't get into it. I am always kind of interested in the subject of essentially the unwarranted villain. The idea that, like, when Linea goes over and starts like messing with the two guys, and yes, obviously intimidating. She's like, yeah, I got worked up. I got too into it. Everybody was looking, so I got into it. It's sad that immediately when Norn comes down there, she immediately goes to Rudius. And yes, it was partly because she just assumed if you're here and Linea is your underling, and like everybody else is assuming, which was the case for many years. Rudius was the big dog, and Linea and Persena was his underlings. So it makes sense that that's the assumption they're going to come to. But it's like everybody in the area looks at Rudius with fear. That's the thing they're pointing out. They're fearful of him. And that's the sad reality that comes with power, is the idea that if somebody has a massive amount of power, and yes, in some cases have flexed it, immediately everybody is fearful and assume the worst of you. You become the bully whether you're actually trying to be a bully or not. It's this idea of fear making him the villain. That no matter what the circumstances is, Rudius is the villain. And I like whenever Refugio kind of dabbles in it, which it's been mostly in the University of Magic. That's usually the only place they ever really get into it, is the idea of the assumption that Rudius is a bad guy. It's like that whole, like, I don't know, level 99 villainous, that kind of story, where it's like, no matter what, you're the Demon King. You have to be the Demon King. You're so powerful, you have to be a demon. It's that idea. You have to be dangerous. I'm just always curious if they'll ever get into like a deeper subject regarding it. Like, you can only be demonized so many times before that kind of mentally affects you. It's almost like you are always being seen as a bad guy and being turned into the villain, which, yes, in some cases can ultimately create the villain. Well, if I have to wear this all the time, I might as well wear it, and I might as well wear it proudly. I don't think they'll ever get into that idea of him turning negative because of it. I know that he has used it before, and that was like a very shocking moment of it. It was really kind of in regards to the idea of people seeing him as a villain or as a bully, and he played into it, and then he realized he didn't want to become that. He didn't want to become the bully. And so that was like it was a subject in the university arc, is the idea of him literally being seen as a bully all the time. And he hated it. He didn't like the idea that, even here, he's literally going, what? Are you kidding me? You calling me the bully? Definitely not something I'm going to take upon myself. But I do see that kind of being something isolating, I guess, is the best way to put it. It is kind of tragic that somebody that is very sensitive like Rudius is always being seen as a bad guy. It is something that can hurt you mentally to always be perceived as being this nasty, negative person that is always the bad guy. He's done nothing wrong. He's there watching his sister do his speech. There's nothing wrong with that. Why does he constantly have to hide from the public just because everybody wants... He's not the problem here, I guess is the best way to put it. They are. The crowd is the problem. They're looking at him in fear. That's not his fault. So don't make it his fault. There is almost an aspect of almost replying to Norn saying, okay, acknowledge the fact that yes, Linea is here, but this is not my fault. Just because they're fearful of me does not mean that I'm a fearful person. It is a sad aspect there. I do like that Norn she does make the assumption that he's doing something wrong, but at least when Rudius explains it and Linea agrees to it, she does sort of let it go. I think that is one side of Norn that has definitely changed. I mean, there's a lot in this scene that shows that obviously Norn has changed a lot. She's achieved this role. She proved herself. Ariel and Sylphie, they've mentioned that she was doing a great job. Even before he even learned that she was a part of the student council, they mentioned that she was doing a good job. And even after he accepted that that's something that she wants to do, she was doing a good job. She's proven herself. She's gained this reputation. This is something that she fought for. And again, thinking back way when she first arrived here to the university, yes, it was misconstrued what was exactly going on, but she was struggling a lot. She's proven herself. And I like how it kind of shows how she has changed because of how she responds to the situation. She diffuses it, says, please don't do that. Please let me be. I can handle myself. Thank you, but don't push too far. And she's even saying literally, don't push too far. She's not saying, don't ever speak up for me. I can handle it myself. she says, don't go too far with it. Like, I think she assumes that you're gonna do it anyways. Just don't get too crazy, please. I can take care of myself. I like it. It shows a lot of her maturity. And again, how she doesn't immediately demonize him, but she accepts the response that he gives her, rather than what we've kind of seen in the past where she doesn't want to listen to him. Like, I mean, let's throw an example out here. The whole thing with Roxy, him bringing back Roxy, she did not want to listen to him. No, I'm not going to listen to you. It shows that she is definitely mature, that she's willing to hear both sides of the situation, diffuse it, de-escalate it. That's the key thing there. She de-escalated the situation. She chilled everybody out, figured out what's going on, and then kind of parted ways. It was really cool. But yeah, I don't know, her little curtsy and helping out Granel, who was in fear. I think Granel's gonna have a thing for Norn. I just think that's gonna be a thing. Which what was Norn is like what? I think she's they're 14 now. Yeah, 14. So she's not that much older than Granel. She's only 4 years older than Granel. Yeah, I totally think Granel's gonna have a thing for Norn. That's gonna be a really that'd be curious if Mangod had Granel sent there to get with Norn so that Rudius would accept Granel and want to help Grabble. What a conflict there. Do you choose Ariel or do you choose Norn? That would be dorky. That'd be really dorky. Nothing would be doubtful in my mind, let's be honest, but anyways, I think that's everything. I think there was something else in there, which I'm forgetting what it is, but I can easily go through it next Mushoku Monday. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for this Mushoku Monday. Hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday, as always. Thank you guys so much for your support, your kind words. Yes, to all those that hit the like button. Again, don't leave until you hit that like button. If you don't hit the like button, you're a babaka. But yeah, I appreciate everybody that supports the channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that good stuff. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. It means so much to me that you guys part with your hard-earned money in order to support the channel. Keeps the lights on, keeps things going as we go through this entire journey. And hopefully within the next 15 years, I will finish it. Feels like I've slowed down. But again, I think these chapters are really long. But yeah, until the next Mushoku Mondays, y'all take care. The two boys, meanwhile, visibly react. She said that you were keeping Mrs. Linea.
You look absolutely gorgeous with Miss Pastrina not around. So we didn't right. You look absolutely gorgeous with you look absolutely gorgeous when Miss Prentice. You look absolutely right. You look absolutely gorgeous with
Studies, swordsmanship. But figured it would lead to another. But if he managed to save Lilia, they would probably know. At least none of Saros's beasts made. To what do I owe this pleasure?
And I deal with any friction that happens at the
Valvalid. The short man then took note of Lu. They confiscated her wagon and goods before operating. They confiscated after getting in debt, buying a horse-drawn what? I promise.